Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next stop on the One and Done Summer Road Trip Series. We're back in the state of Texas for a chat with second-year head coach of the University of the Incarnate Word Cardinals, Shane Heirman. Our guys Mike and Eric chopped it up with Coach about what has molded him into one of the youngest head coaches at this level, a roster with a lot of returning faces, but some important new faces in the backcourt. And, of course, the most important question of all, has Coach fully embraced and engorged in the amazing Tex-Mex food in the Alamo City? All that and more. Plus, after the interview plays, stick around because Eric will join me in studio for a reaction to the interview and a quick breakdown of the Southland Conference. But for now, please enjoy One and Done's chat with UIW Cardinals head coach Shane Heirman.
Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It is my pleasure to introduce today's special guest on the One and Done Show. He is the head coach for the University of Incarnate Word Cardinals, Coach Shane Heirman. Coach, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thrilled to have you on board with us here today. Coach, you just wrapped up your first year at the head coaching level. Before we dive into what is categorically a very exciting outlook for the upcoming season, I want to look backwards a little bit. I want to know if you can share some takeaways and lessons learned, both personally as well as professionally, now that you have that first year at the helm under your belt.
Yeah, it was a challenging year in a variety of aspects, but it's kind of one of those things that you're grateful that you went through, because as you articulated, you learn a lot through that process. You kind of start to navigate. I was fortunate enough; I was a head coach at a prep level. And albeit it was high school, but it was a really high level. And so being able to manage personalities, relationships, everything that kind of would involve on a Division I level was kind of prevalent at our level at La Lumiere. But again, anytime you transition those 6 inches back from assistant coach to head coach, there's an adjustment. And I'm really glad that we experienced what we experienced last year, and really looking forward to this season.
Yeah, Coach, there's a lot to be excited about, but I wanted to talk about the path to you becoming one of the youngest head coaches in the game. I mean, you've had stops at Central Michigan, at DePaul as an assistant, under some coaches that have been around for a long time. So can you share how some of these experiences have shaped your coaching philosophy?
Sure. The coaching industry in general, the reason I'm in it is for the impact and formation that a lot of people have had on me in my development and who I am as a person. And so two of the guys that you just mentioned, Dave Lato and Tony Barbee, I had incredible experiences, and it was such a privilege to be able to work with them, get to know them, tap into their minds and their wealth of experience and knowledge. And so that allowed me to grow in a variety of ways, because I was utilized in different ways at each program, but in both, they gave me a significant amount of autonomy to really dive into the program. And really understand all aspects of being a head coach, not just the coaching aspect, right? It's about 10 to 15% of probably what we actually do. Yeah. The other 85, 90% really takes up majority of your time. And so watching their professionalism and how they went about their days and attacking their days had a significant impact on me.
Yeah, definitely two great examples to follow from there. And you can see those fingerprints all over your style. I want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about the roster that you've put together heading into year number 2. Now, granted, in today's day and age, all the comings and goings of transfers and things like that tend to grab the headline, and we'll certainly get there. But the first thing that really stands out for us about your roster is the amount of it you were able to retain and carry over from last year, right? So can you tell us a little bit about this group of guys you held on to, Dylan Heirman, Sean Robinson, TJ Ford Jr., and their individual impacts, but also just the overarching impact of being able to carry over so much of your roster into year number 2?
Sure. So when you're putting together a program, you're really trying to build out a foundation. and you're trying to get your DNA right. You're trying to really have guys understand the expectations, the standards, how we do things, what separates us from other programs. And so in today's age where there's a hefty amount of turnover, being able to keep and have continuity is a big deal, because those are your storytellers. Those are the guys that can carry the torch. Those are the guys that can hold the next group accountable. Those are the guys that can teach. And so, in a year one, the coaches are heavily involved in pretty much every facet of the program. There's a lot of micromanaging because you're teaching, right? There's a lot of new concepts, ideas, vocabulary, and the hope and the goal through continuity is keeping these guys around so that they become the voices of the program. So now you have a player-led team. You have guys that have gone through like the experiences together. And now you add with that experienced guys, older guys, some young talented ones, and the makeup looks to be really good.
Chatting today with Incarnate Word head coach Shane Heirman. Coach, while you have 50% or so of your roster returning, you've bolstered your team this offseason by bringing in 2 explosive guards from Ball State, Jalen Anderson and Davion Bailey. These guys put up impressive numbers in the MAC. How do you envision their roles and impact on the team this upcoming season?
Yeah, obviously really significant. The thing that really separates those 2 guys already in my short interaction and through recruiting process with them is they're both uncommon people. They are relentless workers. They love the game. They talk about it. They watch it. They want to come to your office and talk about it and watch it. I got a text this morning at 6 a.m. Coach, who you got, USA or Canada? And so it's refreshing because, as you guys know, man, finding that DNA in this game and finding people that love this sport and have a passion for it, those are the guys that get better because they want to be around it. They want to talk about it. They want to watch it. And so obviously their synergy, being able to continue that and keep that after a very successful year for those 2 was incredible for us. And to be able to, have that in your backcourt moving into this year and add a wealth of experience and minutes and shots and assists is huge. It's huge for the development of this program. But again, what really separates them is who they are as people. They are high character people with tremendous work ethics that are great ambassadors for this program and this university.
Yeah, obviously a couple of big impact players on the court, but more importantly, found a couple of guys there that really seem to fit that culture very, very well. So excited to see what they can do for you in the upcoming season. I want to double click here on some of your metrics from last year. Your team ranked 56th in adjusted tempo. You shot about 40% of your shots were from behind the 3-point arc, right? So couple of pretty clear trends that we can point to from last year. I wanted to know from your perspective, is this a trend and a philosophy that we can expect to carry forward in the upcoming season, or do you have something different up your sleeve maybe?
No, I think that's part of our sales pitch and how we're trying to build this is exactly kind of some of the elements that you pointed out. We want to play fast. We want to have a lot of possessions. From an analytical standpoint, we're probably trying to be at the rim or 3. And we're trying to do that in a hurry. And obviously when you add Davion, who shot 44% from 3 last season, Jalen, who's as good a lead guard as there is in the country, TJ Ford, who's gotten a lot better, a lot more mature, a lot of experience, went through it. Mintos from UCF. So we have some guys that can really shoot the basketball, and then we have some guys that can really play with pace and under control that won't be turning the ball over. We turned the ball over at an alarming rate last year, and so being able to improve our decision making, but also our ability to shoot, kind of fits into that idea that you were highlighting in regard to style of play.
Yeah, the arrow looks to be pointing up with possessions and percentages for sure with this roster, Coach. But let's take a step back from the hardwood for just a moment here. You were born in Illinois. You spent a lot of time up north. Now you're down here in South Texas. We're in the Central Texas region. How's that transition been for you? And more importantly, have you found some good Tex-Mex?
Well, first I have to highlight I was born in Indiana. So I was born in Indiana.
About that, Coach.
There for a couple of years. No, that's all right. But I got to stay true to the roots. But then I grew up in Northwest Chicago. So I will tell you this: when I got hired here last year, we had a record of like 18 straight days of 115 or higher, and I was like, hey, nobody told me about this. This is different down here. This is different. But you trade that off for January, February when it's 60 degrees and it's sensational. But the weather's fantastic. The people, this city has really blown me away. I've always kind of been in and out, Final Fours or things of that nature. But this is an incredible city. From all aspects, but the people is really what separated. It's a really legitimate old school community, and the food's fantastic though. Yeah, I found some good spots, and my family loves it here, and so thrilled and privileged to be here.
We are definitely thrilled to have you here in the Alamo City. Last question before we get you out, Coach. Wanted to kind of talk a bit about motivations, right? Heading into year number 2 at the helm here at UIW, do you have a particular rallying cry for this team, and how do you go about getting everyone kind of bought into that goal or into that vision?
Sure. For us, everything is about, maximizing our potential, becoming the best versions of ourselves, and competing against ourselves every day. And so right now in particular, especially this time of year, we're trying to see those incremental growth ideas. And so, we just finished up doing personality assessments with a company that came in and dove into who we are and really trying to, basketball is not like football in the sense that you can get pretty individualized. I don't have 75 guys I got to monitor and mentor and have build relationships with. I have 15. And so I can manage and spend quality time with those individuals and really know who they are, what their motivations are, what their whys are, and coach them in particular to that. And I think when we can establish those relationships, it becomes much easier to coach. It becomes much easier to be received. And I know how they receive. I know how they learn. And so, again, that's all for growth of us trying to reach our best potential, our best versions. And so that's always been the cornerstone of what we're trying to do here. It's not just performance based or outcome based, really investing in people before anything. And so that's if I had to highlight something that we're really focused on right now is truly the investment of these guys and starting to create a legitimate chemistry family here.
There it is, University of Incarnate Word head coach Shane Heirman. Coach, thank you for your time. We're excited to see your team on the court next season, and good luck to you.
That was UIW head coach Shane Heirman. Thank you so much to Coach Heirman and everybody over there at UIW for making that happen. Great conversation there. Sounded like a Texan that's been living here his whole life. Obviously, we're based out here in Texas, and he described that weather to a T, and we're going through it right now. But good stuff there from Coach. And as you can see, I am joined by the Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media. That is Mr. Eric Romoff. You can find him in those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. Man, what a great talk there with Coach Heirman. What were some of your takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, so I am currently residing here in the Alamo City, so I get to see some of this up close and personal. And I mean, there is a palpable excitement around this program that hasn't been associated with it in quite a while. A lot of it has to do with what Coach Heirman is building. And for me, a lot of it has to do with his overall philosophy, right? Like he talked several times over about uncommon people, about building a culture first type of environment. And specifically the thing that jumped out to me, and it makes sense when you think about it, but hearing him say this outright, a basketball team is a very small, close-knit group of people, right? Like he really gets to invest heavily in understanding all of the individuals on his team, what their motivations are. And I think that goes a long way in getting the most out of his players, in recruiting and being able to retain over 50% of his roster from year 1 to year 2, right? These are things that, it may sound kind of, I don't know, tangential, kind of secondary, but in reality, like this is where these little gains come from. And it seems like it's got this program heading in an exciting direction very quickly.
If you're going to build a program with the type of speed that will be necessary for this program to ever just grasp it, relevancy, it's what he's there for. It's what he's been brought in to do. Just put a little jolt into that program and retaining those players. It's so important, that experience. Every coach we talk to talks about experience, cohesiveness, having guys that can stick around and play together. He talked about players being the voices of the program, like being those guys that have been hanging around for such a long time. So, you love to see that sort of stuff. And it's obviously a nice situation he's built for himself down there. The incoming players as well, the uncommon people. He talks about it, these guys. He talks about the uncommon people. I love that phrase, man. You talked about it a little bit ago. I love that phrase. But yeah, go fast, shoot threes. That's the selling point. You want to play fast? You want to shoot the ball from the outside? Come play for me. Count me in, coach. Let me come down and play a little bit of ball with you for sure. Chris D in the comments. Join him if you want to. Green Screens Media getting to host the Final Four in the Alamo City this year. That is correct. We'll be down there, and if you are, let us know.
Yeah, probably gonna get a little some activations around that. Maybe a little meetup, maybe some fun stuff working. But we can't have the game here in our backyard and not jump all over that opportunity. And really, the thing that Chris started with is bang on, right? He is bought in. He would run through a brick wall for Coach Heirman. It seems like the guys on this team would also co-sign on that. He's getting a ton out of this roster. So it'll be fun to see how it all comes together in year number 2.
No doubt about it. If you're feeling what we're talking about, if you're liking what Coach was talking about, hit that like button, show him a little bit of love, and hit that subscribe button as well. But let's do a little bit of a deeper dive now into this Cardinals program. It's only been D1 for 10 years. 2014 is when it became a Division I school. Coach Heirman is the third coach in program history. Like I said earlier, he's been given this task. Hey, man, come on in. Like, we need somebody to just big jolt of energy, and that's what he's brought in year 1, and it's what it's going to continue to be down there in year 2 and beyond. Haven't cleared the 500 mark since 2016, Eric. It's a tough spot to be. Haven't played 500 ball since 2016. But the groundwork was laid last year, you could say. I don't think that there's really an argument to be made that it wasn't. Like, it was absolutely laid out last year. 8 wins won't get it done, but you see that up-tempo three-point shooting game plan that he wants to get going. He talked about the turnovers. That he said his quote was at an alarming rate, which, that's not the best. They're going to have to work on that. Not very efficient. 312th in D1 experience last year and 206th in minutes continuity. Building now with retaining over half the roster and the additions that they made. So it's all lining up real nice there for Coach. Is there a better backcourt in the conference, Eric? I don't know if you can make an argument, but I would say they're as good as anybody else in this conference. And you talked about some of those guys, but Eric, what do the Cardinals have working for them in year 2?
Yeah, they've got a lot working in their favor. I think what I like most about what they've put together here is they've got a lot of guys both that they've retained and that they've brought in that are just organic fits for what he's trying to do out there, right? So I think that bodes very well for what we can expect to see out of them on the court this season. And like you mentioned, it all starts with this backcourt. This backcourt is loaded top to bottom. We talked about the Ball State duo, Anderson and Bailey, coming over. They should absolutely light it up. They are familiar with playing together. They have that synergy that Coach mentioned. He talked about them coming in and specifically referred to Jalen averaging almost 16 points, 36% from 3, right? Like, him in particular, he's going to thrive in this type of environment, instantly becomes one of the top playmakers in the Southland. And then Bailey, also like Coach mentioned, comes in shooting 43% from long range, 12.5 points per game. So, he is definitely injecting guys that fit the mold of what he likes to do very well. And then you've got some guys in the backcourt, right? TJ Ford Jr., for example, right? Like, we've got Marcus here who's listed at forward, bit more of a kind of a wing profile, but he's transferring in from UCF, and he figures to, have a say after spending last season in the Big 12, right? So very, very quickly, we're looking at an incredibly talented roster here for the Cardinals. All these guys should benefit from a guy like Anderson running the point. He can distribute with the best of them and put his teammates in a position to win. Dylan Heirman is back after a solid season where he averaged 8 and 5 for them last year. Sean Robinson, Marcus Glover, Akpova, right? Like, these are all rotation guys that are familiar with the system and are back yet again, right? So, this is a big offseason for Coach Heirman, for the guys that are going to be taking the court for UIW here shortly. And overall, like, I think this team has a lot of talent just in general, and especially in the context of, how quickly they've gotten to this point and just being a mid-major program that's able to compile this type of talent.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, honestly. And this is a team that immediately is going to, push. It's probably fair. We know McNeese State is the heavy favorite in this conference, right? That is what it is. But they're going to push them. They're going to push them. This is a roster that can compete in the Southland. So let's bring that up right now. Why don't we talk about the Southland a little bit? We talked about it, Eric. McNeese State, Will Wade is doing his thing out there, which is to the surprise of absolutely nobody. Don't really think that is was ever up for debate. But the second spot, man, like, it's up for grabs. Like, maybe Nichols staking an early claim in the preseason, looking really strong, older, brought back a trio of guys that average double figures, and 13 league games last year that they won, a third-place finish. Want to see if they can take that extra step in this conference. But, yeah, of course, UIW can get into that mix as well. Who else, Eric? What do you think? Stephen F. Austin?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, McNeese State is probably going to be the favorite, and rightfully so. They've got a ton of momentum, in their favor coming off of last year. But I don't think they're going to run away with this conference by any means, right? Like, I do feel confident that UIW will be in the mix. You mentioned Stephen F. Austin. That's a fantastic shout. UT, Rio Grande Valley, Lamar, right? Like, there's no slouches in this conference, right? Like, there's going to be some highly contested games down the stretch run. The conference tournament itself is going to be very, very contentious and is going to be a bit of a toss-up, right? So we have kind of the betting favorite in McNeese State, but there are several programs, Incarnate Word among them, that I think if they get a head of steam going, can make a legitimate claim for the tops of this league.
Chris D saying they love the Southland, and we do too. There's going to be some tough games night in and night out. One of those teams, the Incarnate Word Cardinals. You bet your bottom dollar that it will be. Man, I gotta say, when he said TJ Ford, it's like, man, like that's a callback from me right there.
Right?
Like and just to think now that TJ Ford's son is obviously doing big things at the college ranks. That lineage, that bloodline runs deep there. The greatest player, in my opinion, in Texas basketball history, University of Texas, and his son, and a lot of other talented players out there this year for UIW, Eric.
Yeah, tons of it, right? Like you think about someone like TJ Ford Jr., who's obviously got pedigree in spades. He's looking for someone to unlock that. I think a guy like Coach Heirman can be that type of coach, that type of mentor to bring the most out of him. And when we talk about programs getting ahead of steam, right? Like on the whole, Coach Heirman and his staff there have brought in a lot of guys that fit very well into what they want to do. And then you start thinking about some of these guys that are either returning or some of these guys that didn't get a ton of run, really reaching their maximum potential. And that's where the upside is for this program, right? Like if you're telling me that TJ Ford makes a considerable leap this year, this team is very, very competitive in the Southland, and they'll probably be like a sneaky upset pick if they make their way into the big dance.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff there. Thanks again to Coach Shane Heirman for joining us, and for everybody for joining us tonight as well. Thanks for Chris D for hopping into that live chat. Make sure everybody, if you're hanging out with us for the first time, or for a long time. If you haven't pushed that subscribe button, do your part in the Green Screens Media universe. Like and subscribe. Tell the hoop heads in your life about us. Eric, thanks so much for joining tonight at Fantasy Nav in those Twitter streets. Of course, the Baron of Bread over there at Green Screens Media. I am Jay Heinrich. I'm the conductor of this thing at Dr. William Cannon. Of course, we're missing our guy, the captain of the ship at MC Holland 34, Mike Holland, and then, of course, at The Real Napier, doing stuff behind the scenes and showing his face on screen every once in a while as well. At One and Done CBB on Twitter, on TikTok, on IG. Get over there on IG. We're not posting a bunch of stuff over there yet, but we will be. Make sure you follow us over there as well so you don't miss a minute or a post or any of our college basketball coverage. Thanks to Incarnate Word head coach Shane Heirman. Thanks to Eric. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. Make sure you tell somebody you love them. Take care of yourselves. Always hit those notification bells because we're bringing more head coach interviews. We're bringing more coverage all the way up to tip off, and we're going to get this bread. Have a good one. Peace.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.